Are we recording?
We are.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Kathy Harmon. I am on the Education Committee of ACTO, and ACTO is the Association of Coach Training Organizations. We are a dynamic community of peers on the leading edge of training excellence and innovation. We welcome all of you here today, and I'm very excited to have this particular subject. So, Elena, if you would like to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to introduce such great people as Damian Goldvarg and George Rogers. Damian is an MCC and accredited coach supervisor that has 20 years of experience in leadership development training, executive assessment and coaching, talent management, facilitation, strategic planning, and team building services. He was born in Argentina, so we have something in common. And he has an extensive experience working with people from different cultures and social backgrounds. He has worked with individuals and organizations in over 40 countries, including the Americas, Europe, Africa, and Asia, offering services in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. He has provided mentor coaching and supervision services for 6 years and co-authored a book on coaching competencies. And he's the immediate past ICF chair of the board. Let's talk a little about George. George Rogers will be there to support this conversation. And he's the Assistant Executive Director of the International Coach Federation, part of the ICF for the last 8 years, with responsibilities in the area of credentialing and program accreditation. So let's share and learn from them today.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you for inviting us to do the session today. Can you hear me well? Yes?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Well, it's great being here with George. And people who know me know that I'm a very passionate guy, and that I am so passionate that I got everybody in my family to become coaches. And my parents, both of them and my brother, they all work also in coaching schools, training coaches. So we also have that in common. And for transparency purposes, because I have seen some of the emails that have been circulating, is that when I went to go through the coaching supervision certification program was because I was interested in learning more about supervision. My clients are corporations and organizations. So I want to be clear about that since the beginning, that my interest in supervision is about building professional coaching. It's not like a personal business. I work with big corporations providing executive coaching and leadership training and coaching skills training for managers. So that's my specialty. And also work for the United Nations offering similar services. And yes, I have done mentor coaching and coaching supervision with a goal to provide support to my colleagues. So I want to be clear about that since the beginning. So my goal is not to build a coaching supervision practice or anything like that. It's more to be of service to our community and develop professional coaching. So from that perspective, I was interested and I went through the training, and I became very passionate about coaching supervision because I think that can provide tools and opportunities for coaches to keep developing and growing and learning. So I want to create the context for the session, being very transparent and clear where I'm coming from. And I don't know, George, if you want to say anything before I start and get into talking about how ICF defines coaching supervision and mentor coaching.
No, other than I'm very pleased to be here and look forward to this conversation, and I hope you all are warmer than we are here in Lexington, where I'm based right now. It's 15 Fahrenheit, -8 centigrade, and we've got over a foot of snow. So we're, for some of you, that's not extreme weather. For us, it is. So, but I'm looking forward to this conversation, and it's great to see so many familiar faces there, and I hope to get the opportunity to contribute to this. So.
Thank you, George. It's great here being with all of you. And we are looking forward to seeing you in the conference in May. We are going to Orlando, and we are looking forward to seeing you again or meeting you in person if we have not met you yet. and also to keep this conversation. So this is the beginning of the presentation, it's not the end. With George, we are bringing here like a collaborative stand. We want to listen, we want to hear what you have to say. I want to clarify something before I start. Like I was talking to Annette before and exchanging emails about the video that we did together when I did a presentation and Roger wrote for the local chapter. And I made some statement that were not accurate. So I want to clarify that before I even start talking. Just as that coaching will be mandatory in 3 years, that was my personal opinion. That was not ICF position, and we are not going in that direction. So I want to just be very clear at the beginning. Coaching supervision is not and will not be mandatory. Okay, so I want to just bring that. So I want to apologize for the statement that I made that was inaccurate, and it was a personal opinion, was not really ICF position.
And what about coach mentoring?
Coach mentoring is a different thing. But
right.
what I want to request is that if you let me do the presentation and then you have any questions and comments. So if you can write down your questions, we're very happy to answer any questions. And definitely, mentor coaching and supervision are two different things. Mentor coaching is a requirement, and at different levels. And we can. I would talk now. I would define both of them. What is the difference between supervision and mentor coaching? What is ICF position? And we're also revising these definitions. So we have, right now, they are available in our website. So if you are interested, probably you have already seen them. But if you have not seen what is ICF position on coaching, coaching supervision and mentor coaching, I want to invite you to go to our website, and everything that we're going to be covering today is there. It's based on the document. You can find it if you go to our website under individual credentialing. Is the last tab in individual credentialing. The last option is mentoring and supervision. And I think that there you can find what is the definition of coaching supervision that I'm going to be covering now. What is the definition of mentor coaching? There is a video from a presentation that talks about the differences. So you can hear also our colleagues talking about it. So this is also, all of this is available again in our website, coachfederation.org, under individual credentialing, the last option, mentoring and supervision. Okay, so this is the content that I'm going to be covering now with George.
Yeah. Damian,
yes.
This is Vicki Brock. Will you cover how these definitions came to be formed? Because they're quite different than the definitions that have always been for those of us that have been in coaching since the mid-90s. These are different definitions than we grew up with and we understood.
Okay.
And so how the ICF came to have these definitions.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Vicky. Yes, we will do that. We will ask George to cover and share with us how did we get where we are today and where we are going. And as I said, we are not going into mandatory coaching supervision, but we are definitely re-looking at this definition, what we have here. And we're trying to figure out if what we have is clear enough, if there is anything that needs to be changed, and we are open to listen to your suggestions or your opinions about this.
Right.
Okay, so moving forward, let me define how we see supervision and how we differentiate it from mentor coaching. So if you look in our website, and we have some slides, but we were suggesting not to use the slides, just to have it more conversational. We have a set of slides, and we will make them available to you if you want to see some of the definitions or some of the content, but everything is from that document that I recommended you to see in our website. The definition that ICF is using at this time for coaching supervision is like an interaction that occurs when a coach periodically brings his or her coaching work experience to a coaching supervisor in order to engage in reflective dialogue and collaborative learning for the development and benefit of the coach and his client or her client. And here I think what I want to address, what I think is important, is that we see coaching basically as a reflective dialogue, as a collaborative process. And I want to differentiate here from, it's like many times when we explain what coaching is, we also say, okay, what is not therapy, it's not consulting. Here, when we talk about supervision is not control. And I think that I have seen some documents that talk about supervision as a way of control. And I think that has been one of the key concerns that I have heard over time, seeing supervision as a way of controlling coaches. or from the perspective of an administrator, like in organizations when we talk about supervisors. Supervisors are usually the boss, that the authority. So supervision here is not from that place of control or authority. Supervision, ICF see it as a collaborative process. I was having dinner with Jeff Auerbach, that I'm glad you're here in the call today. And he suggested that instead of supervision, we should call it consultation. Like you consult a colleague about what are your challenges, your concerns, you have an opportunity to reflect on your practice. And I really found his approach interesting. And because this is what we are really doing, is consultation, is collaborating between colleagues. And it's about reflective practice. And I have been doing it for a while. Even when I went through a training, I wanted to see what they have to offer and get even deeper into doing the work. But I think it's, and I have my own supervisor that I have been working and really make a big difference when you get the opportunity for you to look at your own practice and your own challenges and what make you successful, what may you not be seen. So from that perspective, I believe that, and this is my personal belief, I think that coaching supervision provides value to coaches. I think that coaching supervision as an opportunity to reflect on your practice is a valued practice. And in terms of differentiating it from mentor coaching, the way that ICF define mentor coaching, and I want to read exactly the definition from the website, is coaching for the development of one's coaching rather than reflective practice, coaching for personal development or coaching for business development. So here the idea is that supervision is more general and mentor coaching is more specific. And mentor coach is focused on providing feedback to coaches on their performance to find out if they're being effective or not. In this case, if it is for effect of credentialing, to what extent the performance and the demonstrations of the skills and the abilities based on the 11 core competency model from ICF is aligned or not aligned to what is expected on the different credentials. So I want to ask everybody to mute if you are not, for a few minutes. If not, we hear the background. And for people who are on the phone, the way to mute is *6. So in that way, we don't hear the background. Okay, so mentor coaching is specifically about developing coaching skills. So the difference with a mentor coach is the mentor coach focus is on observing, listening to somebody doing coaching, and then as a result of that, having a dialogue, a conversation where we ask questions to the coach about what do they think they have been effective or they can be more effective, but where the main role of the mentor coach is to provide feedback and to provide information to what extent what they are doing is aligned or not to what is expected for their development, what they have done that is effective, what they can do to be even more effective. And even for MCCs like me, we always can keep growing and learning and developing. So it's not that because we're MCC, we don't have more to learn. I think that there is always opportunities to keep growing and learning and getting somebody to give us feedback about how to go to the next level. So mentor coaching, like we were having this conversation with George and with other people engaged in this dialogue, we wonder if mentor coaching is the right word to call what we do. Because what we really do is mentoring, it's instruction, it's about feedback. That's the focus on mentor coaching, it's specific. It's about working with coaches or people who are training as coaches so they can develop the coaching skills specifically. So the focus on mentor coaching is coaching skills. And the focus on supervision can include mentor coaching, but goes beyond that. The focus on supervision is who is the coach? It's the difference between the what and the who. What is what we do as coaching? And in supervision, we focus more on the who we're being, what are our challenges, what are our concerns, what are our difficulties, and also what are our successes too, what we're doing well, what do we need to be doing. So it's an opportunity to reflect on what we are doing. So this is to start. George, do you want to clarify anything that I said, any points to the difference, how we differentiate supervision from mentor coaching?
Well, it is a really important distinction, I think, that we've made over the years in terms of mentor coaching. At least in my experience here, has always been positioned as more for a coach who's developing their skills, part of the learning process. In fact, since the start of ICF's accreditation of training programs, we've included mentoring as a component that we think should happen. We still include it as a part of the credentialing process, and it's mainly been focused on development of coaching skills, as Damian said. So it is really a part of individualized instruction, really. So the loop or the recommendation that we always make when people call and say, I'm going for an ICF credential, what do I need to do? When we talk about mentor coaching, we say, you should be having someone listen to you coach, give you feedback. You should have the opportunity to reflect on that feedback, to practice what they have, practice some of those ideas, be listened to again, and go through that process several times. In fact, one of the requirements is that development has to go on for a period of longer than 3 months. So that's the 10-hour requirement we have for mentor coaching within an ACTP or within a people who are going through the portfolio path, has always focused on that as development, specifically to development of the core use of the core competencies in their coaching. But the words of mentoring, supervision, some people call it guided practice, some people call it reflective learning. All those kinds of things kind of get blended together. So we are looking at how do we make that clear? How do we explain more clearly what we're expecting to happen? Because really, mentor coaching, development of coaching skills is not just something that you would want to do for development, attaining a credential. It's something that you would want to do, at least my opinion is it's something that you would want to do throughout your experience as a coach. You want to continue to develop your skills. And so, but for purposes of credentialing, for purposes of the infrastructure that we developed for the credentialing program, mentor coaching is what we are calling that piece of individualized instruction that is happening, or small group instruction probably that's happening, that it's more personalized, more customized for the individual. And I would contrast that with instruction that is more of the sit and get, where you're being lectured to in a group and everyone's hearing the same thing and it's not really customized to your use. So mentor coaching is more about that individualized instruction that you're getting. When we go into supervision, we're still, I think, refining what we think that is. That's part of the discussions that we're having right now. But what Damian said about reflective practice is certainly what's emerging there is that is an expansion of not just skill development or development of your use of the core competencies, but also your development, your personal development, professional development as a coach. And how you work with who you are and how you work with your clients.
Do you want to share, George, how do we get to where we are today with these definitions, what we have here?
Sure. So one of my big jobs and one of the big jobs of helping with the working with the ICF, being part of the ICF staff, is listening. We try to listen to what the trends are, try to look ahead at what some of the issues are going to be. And over the past few years, supervision has definitely emerged as a topic of interest within the coaching community, especially in Europe and in Australia. Less so here in the States, probably, but it's still an issue that is of large interest. That we confirmed that recently with a study of a survey we did with experienced coaches, and there was a lot of interest in supervision as a topic that we needed further development. I think just some history about, around 2 years ago, we were hearing a lot of things about supervision. We pulled together discussions or work that had been done by various groups, the credentialing committee, some task forces, some discussions that we'd had around different topics, and supervision was one of those. And from that, we formed the idea that we really needed to provide at least some guidance. There was a lot of requests. Give us some guidance about what supervision is, what the ICF position on it is. And because of that, we formed a very small group that pulled together some ideas about the definition of supervision from the ICF's perspective, the definition of further refining the definition of mentor coaching. And that information's been on the website for, I think, a couple of years. It's still there under the individual credentialing tab. There's a separate section on mentoring and supervision, and there's information there about that. In the meantime, once we did that, or I guess along the same time we did that, several bodies from around the world have continued to work on supervision. There's lots of best practice models that have been developed. There's some trainings that have been developed. There are some competencies that have been developed. And recently, coming from the ICF Australasia Task Force on supervision, some information was presented to the board for consideration, the ICF board for consideration. And one of the things that happened was we adopted a policy that allows supervision to be used as part of to be used as the requirements, some of the requirements as an option for renewal of credential. In a lot of ways, that is not, well, in a lot of ways, we've always allowed individualized instruction to be used as part of the criteria for renewal of credential. This formalized it a little bit, asked for some more documentation about the experience that people had, and it's kind of an entry step into putting some more specifics around our renewal process, because we have lots of different ways that people are wanting to submit information to us regarding their professional growth. They're doing research, they're doing writing, they're doing teaching, they're participating in traditional CCE type programming. So having that as a little more specifics to that around the supervision was something that was added. Another thing that happened there was that the ICF board said that we need to continue this discussion and to keep looking at this, listening about this. And so as a result, we formed a task force. Right now, it's a very small task force. We've had 2 meetings just to kind of continue the dialogue about the ICF position, the ICF definition of supervision, and really the issue that continues to emerge is the differences, or is communicating the differences between what we call mentor coaching and what we call supervision. We had some discussion briefly about the terminology that we're using. Probably mentor coaching, there's confusion about what that means. There's around the terminology, there's confusion around the term supervision. And so when I read Jeff's piece about what he recommended, or maybe not recommended, but what he was calling it, that's an interesting thing that we'd like to pursue further probably, but also lots of other options for how we identify these 2 things that we have that have kind of emerged, and how we label those, how we communicate those clearly, that they are professional development activities, and what's the differences between them. So far, the task force, as I said, there's just a little more specifics. There's 9 individuals, with the idea that as we get further into the work, we will expand the membership with other subject matter experts who can contribute. I think an early piece of the work that we're talking about is just creating a Venn diagram, some kind of graphic that shows the intersection between mentor coaching, between supervision, between coaching. We haven't started that work yet, but that's something that we're thinking that would help add some clarity. We've had some sharing about within the group about what their experience has been with supervision, what their definition of it is, and there's some variation there, but generally, again, no decisions made. Another thing that we're looking at are what would competencies be or best practices be for someone serving in that role. Again, very early work just at doing some collection of what are the models that are out there, and how would we go about validating those. But from the ICF's board perspective, there's no real specific formal charge for this group to make recommendations, to develop policy. Right now, I think what we're doing is we're having a very open conversation about a topic that's of interest to a lot of people. and I expect that that's going to continue.
And one of the things that we are discussing is this terminology. It's interesting for me, being English my second language, trying to exactly see what are the right words to define what we are talking about. So we have been talking, is mentor coaching the right words? Supervision, how the connotation that supervision has about control and authority, how we can get rid of that, and it's challenging. So we're open to ideas, and we're open to listen. We're here in a collaborative stance with George. I have seen some of the comments that people are writing in the text, in the chat room. And by the way, in terms of conflict of interest in the board, because all board members are involved in some way in coaching training, mentor coaching, supervision, we always disclose that at the beginning of every board that we do. So we have that practice. I don't know how do you do it in the board in ACTO, but at the ICF Global Board, every time that we need to make a vote, there is a disclosure of conflict of interest, and people who are engaged or involved in making decisions that can benefit personally do not vote. And Vicky, I have not voted as chair of the board for 2 years. I never vote because the chair doesn't vote, so I have not been involved in voting for these decisions. Just for the record. But we always are very careful, and we do have that as a practice. I think it's important that people know that.
So Damian and George, as you see, there's been an awful lot of chat going on while you're speaking. And so is this a good time for you all to field some questions?
Yeah, definitely. And we are really here. I wish I would have more time to cover more content, but let's do that when we meet in person in May. Our goal with George today was to cover a little bit more content and information about what is supervision, not only what we just said that it was like the beginning of, like, let's say 5 points, point number 1. But I think that people are interested in expressing their ideas and they want us to listen, and we're open to that, definitely. So we can open now and keep with the content piece on May when we meet in person.
Okay, so let's see. Several people have been vocal on chat, and we've got Vicky. Would you like to start with whatever is your most pressing question?
Yeah, if I can figure out how to get myself off mute. I think it's my last comment that coaching supervision seems to be something in search of a problem that may not exist. I'd really like the group to hear from Jeff Auerbach, who, as Damian mentioned, came up with a more neutral term where we can describe what this is without creating a whole industry of coaches who benefit from working with other coaches. Does that make sense?
Jeff, do you wanna, are you there? Are you mute?
Don't forget to unmute.
So to mute is *6, to unmute, how is, how do you?
*6 to unmute.
*6 again, okay. Are you there? You still there, Jeff?
We may not have
Well,
him.
what I can share, what I had a conversation with him, what he was suggesting, he's very concerned because supervision has a lot of connotation in the mental health arena. And even I was, we were together at the conference, and even psychologists would not want to use the word supervision in the United States because of legal ramifications, and some of them call it shadow consulting. So I asked about shadow consulting, and in that shadow consulting was not any shadowing, because they are not going, I thought that they would go and observe people what they were doing, but they were not. So they came up with that as a way not to use the word supervision. I think that what is important here is that we're clear in coaching supervision as a term that we have now, eventually maybe change. But for now, what we really are talking is about reflective practice. And Vicky, what you said, I agree with you. It's the same thing that when we work in coaching, we work in working on what is working, not what is not working when you're working with our clients, is to see, okay, what is working in my practice? What is effective? What I want to keep doing? And also what challenges I'm having, or maybe there is something that I am not seeing. So that is the philosophy of coaching supervision.
But if I could talk for a second about the terminology, it's largely the same problem we have with the word coaching. You know, when still, if somebody asks me what I do and I say I work with professional coaches, they want to know what sport I'm talking about. So I have to define that further. And the same thing is true when we talk about mentoring, or which is why we started calling it mentor coaching, and actually may need to start calling it coach mentoring. And the same thing about supervision. If we talk about coach supervision, that's different from the general term of supervision. It depends on the context we're using it. I think it's going to, I agree, the term has some connotations to it depending upon the context it's used, depending upon the, right now, maybe there is a better term. That's something that we're discussing as a task force, and I think, you know, conversations like this are important to that. We want a term that accurately conveys it. Supervision in some parts of the world, when we talk about coach supervision, it's largely understood, in other parts not. So we need to make sure we've got clear terminology. And I think it's one of the things that we want to do, just like what the ICF tries to do with making the word coach clear. We want at some point, the envisioned future is that when we say the word coach, people start thinking about professional coaches and not about athletic coaches. However, if we were starting over, we may use a different term for what we call coaching. But again, the terminology is very important, and it now requires some kind of explanation.
I just want to throw it for the general discussion, or just not at all. Just my background is engineering, and in that profession, we have what we call professional practice reviews that are done by peers. So we call them peer reviews. Peer review, professional practice peer review. You know, which to me doesn't have the connotation of any kind of up-down authoritative thing. So I'm hearing that that's what people are getting tweaked on, is the authoritative part. So peer
okay.
is
And not to be oppositional, but from my background in professional education, when I went through a peer review, that meant I was being evaluated on my performance. So it had a negative connotation to it in some ways.
Will always be, yeah.
So we're gonna continue to struggle to find a word that doesn't have a negative connotation. But yeah, I think it's certainly worth considering. What do we call this? How do we communicate it? And again, that's what the task force in its very early conversations has been talking about how do we clearly communicate this idea of different ways of professional growth.
Well, I think this is Marian. I think part of the problem here is that, for me anyway, mentoring incorporates some supervision. So, for example, if I'm asking somebody, what part of the conversation is the most challenging for you? I'm still focused on competencies. I'm still focused on skills, but I'm listening to what's making us, let's say, for example, when the ship comes, or how to end the conversation, or how to figure out where the person is really stuck, or whatever. I'm really looking at skills, but I'm also looking at what's happening for them that they're feeling stuck. And sometimes it's because they're sharing a similar situation in their life or something like that. So for me, it's a full blend. And I don't know that they have to be so distinguished between what's mentoring, what's supervision. I think we need to come up with something that describes that we are working with whoever we're working with to help them improve their coaching, period. It's not to build their practice, but it is to improve their coaching. And sometimes that means looking at where they're stuck in their own life, and therefore it's affecting how they, for example,
throughout Albuquerque, a fifth in Rio Rancho, and the Advanced Technology Center on Alameda. CNM also offers customized training and community education at the CNM work.
Thank you.
I don't know what happened.
So I'm pretty much in agreement with you there. In fact, to me, when you're working with someone, or when someone is wanting to learn, there are going to be different modalities that are needed for them at different times in their learning path. For example, early on with a coach, it may need that they need a very structured way of how they use the core competencies, learning a coaching process. As they go on, you go into more depth. And so I do think there's a lot of blend over between what we're calling mentor coaching and what we're trying to define as supervision. And that's something I think it's gonna continue to evolve, and perhaps it does evolve into one thing with multiple ways of looking at it.
So what is the real reason for making such a clear distinction?
This is more my opinion, but I think it's evolved over time. That the initial perspective was that coaches who were seeking a credential needed to have someone listen to their coaching, needed to have someone give them feedback on their use of the core competencies. So that piece of infrastructure has been a part of the ICF credentialing model really since the start. But beyond that, supervision has emerged as a broader set of, I guess, reflective learning that happens even beyond the learning that was intended to happen for coaches who are just getting their coach training. So it may be at this point it may be, or at some point it may be an artificial distinction that we've created. Mm-hmm. But for now, for the purposes of credentialing, when we're advising students about going through the ICF credentialing process, we want them to have had some very specific individualized opportunities to have reflection on their use of the ICF core competencies, the ICF definition of coaching, those kinds of things, for their development and really for their preparation to earn a credential, or their growth with their skills.
Well, I just wonder if we can't come up with a term that really incorporates both of them in a way, so that whether the person actually needs the literal mentoring to get the credential, or whether the person is technically getting supervised / mentoring because they want to enhance their skills, maybe we can just come up with one broad thing instead of making such a distinction between them.
Perhaps.
Thank you, Marian. Thank you for that perspective. I was not part of coming up with these two differences, and I have heard other people share your perspective too. And I think that in terms of mentor coaching, when people mentor coach, I think there is a variety with people who just focus on the skills and don't get into the personal parts, and people who do more of that, so do more a blend. So there are different modalities of mentor coaching, and also different the mentor coaching for somebody who is getting trained as a coach. Usually there are a lot of anxieties, a lot of things happening in the process when you're trained originally as a coach than the mentor coach that can happen later. The mentor coach that can happen with somebody with experience, maybe somebody who is going for his or her MCC or renewing the ACC, like they're in different parts of their professional development. So, and I think that it's a good question. It's a good question, and we have people going to be looking into that, and I think that that's a really good place to look at that. My way, Marian, my personal perspective is that there is a different focus. That the focus in mentor coaching is on developing your skills, and your focus in supervision is in building yourself as a coach, a more broader perspective. So it's not only your skills, but what's happening to you, what are your blind spots, what are your challenges, what's happening to you when you're working with a client, what you may not be seeing beyond not only your coaching skills, so it's a bit broader. So the way that my personal interpretation is that it's a little bit different focus. And the other reason one is mandatory in terms of getting trained on your skills, and the other one is optional. And I think that something that I have been doing is that making people to know about what is it. Like that was my personal idea, and not for my own, as somebody have said before, I want to just clarify that. You can believe whatever you want, but it's not for my personal gain. But I do believe that coaching supervision has a lot to offer to coaches. I think that people can really get a lot of value from working and talking with somebody about their practice and seeing and reflecting on what they are doing.
Yeah, Damian, this is Vicki Brock. What many of us who've been in coaching since the early days, this is what we include as mentoring, and we have always done it, whether it's with peers in our circle of network where we bring these issues, or whether it's part of the mentoring in the large umbrella that we provide to the people we work with. And that's where there's a concern from some of us that this is unnecessary. And I agree with Marian, a neutral term that, and I think ICF can definitely take a lead in this. I'm very curious who these 9 individuals are who are advising the ICF on this, and how many of them are certified coaching supervisors who already have a very strong opinion that coaching supervision exists and needs to exist. So does George, do any of you, can you share their names? Or whether privately you send us afterwards their names so we can see. And also that would allow us, if we're not able to be involved, to be able to make ourselves heard with these people that you're looking to advice for. Because I know the initial task force was headed by a certified coaching supervisor, which to me is problematic.
So is that something then that George or Damian, you can send that to us and we can send that out, disseminate that? In the interest of, we have lots of questions.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the intention, what is the question behind the question, Vicky? I think that what I am understanding is the concern that whatever the board get advice is an advice that is neutral in some way, that there is not any conflict of interest, and that the board, it hurts not only to a small task force, but hurt anybody who wants to talk.
Yeah.
So what I want you to know is this board of directors is very open to listen, to learn. We are here, we are all volunteers. The only thing we want, our own intention is like yours, is to build professional coaching. That's the reason why we spend hours and hours working as volunteers for ICF, like many of you are in the board of ACTO, or have been in the board in the past of ICF, or are in other associations as volunteers, working in collaborating and contributing. And we are definitely very open. We really want to listen. We want to do the best that we can to meet the market needs and to take care of our coaches and the client and the whole community. So we are open to listen. So it's not about who are the people. The question is, we want to listen to you. So I think it's even more important that we find a way, George, with people from this call who won't have anything to communicate, so we can collect the information.
Yeah.
And that's important. That I think that is more important than getting a list with names.
Sure.
But I think they are both very important, because that would also allow us to know who's this core group and how to get input to them as well as directly to the board. That's the intent.
That's fine. I would just like to have permission from them before I release their emails publicly or their name, contact information publicly, because to me, that's ethical to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. There was also a question recently. Let me see if I can find it now. From Holly, what discussion has occurred with ACTPs about how they are using the term supervision and mentoring in their current practices? And there's been some discussion around that on the chat. I don't know that that's so much a question for Damian and George as it is for other people on the call.
It actually is a question to Damian and George, because I'm also looking at, like, how is the task force gathering their information and where is it actually coming from?
So Damian and George, do you have any idea of that? How are the ACTPs brought into these discussions?
Well, as I said early, we haven't really, I don't know, done any collection of things yet, other than the work that's been done in the past, the ICF position that was developed in the past. But I would anticipate, and I would surely think, that what we're going to do is ask for input from ACTPs, from others who are involved in coach training and education, around their perspectives on this, their definitions of it, those kinds of things. I will say that in terms of the requirements for ACTPs, we have become more specific in the application process and in the incremental renewal process to ask people to have mentor coaches who are ICF credentialed, doing those mentoring sessions, which was a logical, to me, thing that you would want somebody, if you're teaching the ICF core competencies, you would want someone who knows the ICF core competencies. So we have been a little more rigorous in enforcing that set of rulings, especially for new programs coming in. And we've tried to clarify more what we mean by mentor coaching. In the past, sometimes mentor coaching has been seen, or we know experiences people have had with mentor coaching where the mentoring was more about how do you develop your website or your marketing plan or those kinds of things. And we wanted to be very specific that we intended mentor coaching to be that that instructional component of learning about the core use of the core competencies and those kinds of things. So in terms of how we work with the ACTPs and ACSTHs, it's been to make the requirements more robust, I guess, for the mentor coaching component. We have not had any requirements at all for supervision to occur within ACTPs. But again, certainly we would want to listen to what the ACTPs are thinking that way, how they define it, and include that in our work.
Yeah.
And I know one case. I know one case that I can share in Argentina, one of the coaching schools that is an ACTP, that they decided they were calling the mentor coaches supervisors. And they decided to change the name from supervisors to mentors because the focus was on providing feedback on their coaching skills. They were not supervising them. So I know one case that I can share. I don't know if maybe.
Yeah, it just seems that with all the experience that the ACTPs and the ACSTHs have, it would be really valuable to tap into that that wider spectrum of information before moving forward with definitions. Otherwise, it seems like we're fitting programs into boxes that may or may not work, and we don't really know if you've just got this small group that's making those decisions. I find that I'm really looking to see, wouldn't it be valuable to get information from the people that have been practicing for these last 20 years?
But by the way, Hope, they are not making any decisions. They are just collecting some information to provide some information to the board. But I think that I appreciate your comment because we can find ways to really engage, as you're saying, people who may have important information to share.
I'm not even sure we're even doing that. I think we're doing the same thing that we're doing right here. We're having a discussion about all of the ambiguity around these topics. That's where we've gotten so far. And as we refine the work, I think we're going to need input from lots of places. But it's not a decision-making body. It's not even a recommendation-making body. I think it's a listening body right now, and we're developing the ears that we want to use to listen. So right now, the two conversations that we've had have been very much just kind of an open conversation, much like the conversation we're having here.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a little under 10 minutes left. Damian and George, how would you like to use the rest of that time?
So first, I want to be open to listen any comment and collect information. So I am sending through the chat room my email, Damian@coachfederation.org. I am 100% open to learn any ideas, suggestions. Like I shared with you before when I talked to Jeff, his suggestions about calling consultation instead of supervision. We are open. We are trying to find out what is the best strategy and what is the best way the best terminology to explain things. So we're definitely open to listen. And Vicky, this is for everyone. Like as a board member, you can, as immediate president, I'm still a member of the board. I don't have any voting privileges, so I am not a voting board member. But you can send me all of this information, and I will be happy to pass this information along. So that can be one way where people can speak up, and I am always open to anybody who want to talk to me by mail or on the phone. I am happy to talk to anybody who will be willing and open to do that. George, anything that you want to add?
No, I mean, again, I think as we go on, we're going to develop ways for input to be added to this discussion. And I'm hearing some interesting things already about how these things merge together, the concerns about the terminology that we use and how important that is. And those are certainly things we want to consider as we move forward. Or maybe as we move sideways. I don't know which way we're moving right now.
Well, as a relative newcomer to the coaching scene, it's interesting to hear the conversation. I mean, what I hear overall is that everybody is interested in ways that we can grow and learn as coaches. And what's interesting is sort of some of the fear that's gotten stirred up, and I'm not clear where that's coming from, and that's probably because I'm new to the profession. But that's my reflection of this conversation, is that people are scared. And I would be interested, and I'll see some of you at the conference in May, which we want to put a plug in for that, the ACTO conference in May 6th to 9th in Orlando. But interested to hear, what people's concerns are, and if there's a way for us to just work together to address them as coaches. I think we have the ability to do that.
So Kelly, what you said, I appreciate it. And I feel a little bit responsible for that fear, that the word you use, fear, because I was talking to Annette before about editing my presentation for what I said in Vancouver Island. Like I made a couple of statements that were not very accurate. They were my personal opinion, were not ICF position. I think that created a lot of negative emotions and reactions. And I apologize for that again. So I think that's part of the origin of that. So I want to reinforce the idea that coaching supervision is not mandatory in 3 years, or this is not part of the discussion. And I also want to emphasize, and this is my personal opinion, that I see a lot of value in supervision. It is an opportunity to provide to coaches to keep growing and developing and learning, not only through trainings or going to conferences or taking workshops, but also to work with a colleague, where they can keep looking at themselves and growing and learning. So when we meet in May, I am open to, if you have any questions or comments or things that you would like George and I to cover, we will do that. But I would also like to talk more about supervision and share a little bit more content of how we can apply in supervision in terms of exercises. So the idea is that when we get together in May, we talk a little bit about this concept, but also we do some more work and get to learn more about coaching supervision. And my invitation to all of you, as in the work that we do, I think learning a little bit more about it can be beneficial. There are some tools, there are some models, there are some things that can enrich our practices as coaches, as mentor coaches, and some people do that in part of, as Marion said before, and Vicky said too, that many people engage what we are calling supervision as part of mentor coaching.
So Damian, this is Vicky. What's the possibility, and I guess I'm a little confused on whether you're speaking as the ICF past president or as Damian Goldvarg, but anyway, my question is, what's the possibility by May that there can be more clarity from the ICF on whether the term is coaching supervision, which many of us think is what we do and have been doing as coach mentoring for years, and whether a neutral term and ACTO can be part of, creating this instead of just being talked at or included in the discussion. They can be intimately involved with this.
I'm fine with lots of suggestions for neutral terms. So, if that's something that ACTO wants to generate, or I think we want to hear that. We want to hear what is a term that describes what we want in a way that does not have, emotional baggage to it. But like Holly was saying early in the call, she had a term that she used that didn't have any strong feeling for her, but it did for me. We're going to struggle with that. So I think it's got to be more than just the terminology. It's got to be an explanation of what we mean by the terminology and putting context around it. But again, I'm very open to that. If there's a process to collect possible terms, that to me is fine.
Yeah, because the message by Damian speaking at conferences and you coming here side by side with Damian is that coaching supervision is something that is viable, that is supported by the ICF, and is already the decision has been made. And I think many of us are in a different place saying, you know, we hear the term coaching supervision and we say, okay, there's this big marketing effort going on for something that's not needed. So it's tough to be in the conversation when that's where it starts.
Okay.
I think, Vicky, I think that there are different perspectives about if it is
Yeah.
needed or not needed. So I think it's important to learn about each other and maybe respect and maybe agree to disagree. But I think that so far, and now being clear about what is ICF perspective. So as I said before, what I said there was my own personal perspective. But now what the board agreed was to approve some recommendations that we got from the Australasian Task Force that recommended that we include coaching supervision as a valid way for people to keep growing, learning, and developing, and they can use CCUs to do that. So that's ICF position in terms of coaching supervision today. We do believe, as ICF, that coaching supervision provides value for coaches, and that people who want to renew their credentials, they can use coaching supervision as one way to keep growing, learning, and developing, other than just coaching conferences or workshops or other ways to get CCUs. So this is the position today. Now, we are open to keep...
Damian, excuse me, but the position today, the person who headed up that task force was a certified coaching supervisor. So you had coaching supervisors advising you on the position, which is where I take issue, that there's not the neutrality. And so that we're already well down the path here, and the neutrality wasn't there at the beginning. And that's my concern, that we're just, that it's out of our hands.
So we can keep the conversation offline,
Okay.
and I'm happy to keep that conversation going. And I think that at the same time, when you bring people to provide advice, you need to bring experts, people who know what they are talking about. So when we're bringing them, these are the experts. These are the people who have been doing the job. These are the people who know.
They're experts in coaching supervision, not experts that have been in the profession that have a differing opinion. That's my concern.
Okay, so,
okay, so
if I could check
I think what we need to do is to start wrapping this up. It's actually after 1 o'clock, and we can please come to the May conference. I think that this will be a very active and lively discussion at the May conference. So I very much appreciate everybody coming and giving their opinions, and please let us know the kind of questions that you have that you would like us to move forward. I do have a parking lot of many of the questions that came out today. I wasn't able to capture everything, but I did save the chat, Hallie. So we'll have access to that as well. Any last words, Damian, George?
The only that I want to say is that my approach, and I think ICF approach too, is collaboration. So we want to, this is one of our values, one of our 5 values, is collaboration, respect. So this is what we want to do with you, and collaborate, working together, and see how at the end of the day we have all the same interests of growing professional coaching. So I think that we need to keep that in mind. So that's my request and my invitation is to, and what I'm hearing behind some of the comments is feeling excluded in decision making or not taking into consideration. And I want to reinforce that that is not where we're coming from. We really want to listen. We really want to collaborate. We really want to understand different possibilities. And maybe at some point we may agree, and in some areas we may not agree, and that's okay.
Okay. Let's officially.
George, is anything you want to say before?
Just as always, it's great to hear the variety of opinions, and we'll certainly factor those in to the work that we're doing. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation. Got lots of thoughts and ideas from this, and some clarification and some more confusion. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Great. And thank you very, very much for being here, both Damian and George. Very lively discussion for sure. And please, if you would check out our website, actoonline.org. All the details of the conference in May are there, May 6th to 9th. We'd love to see you in Orlando. We have, I think, about 10 spots left. to attend the conference. So we'd love to fill it up. And thanks for being here. We'll see you next month.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.
Great seeing everybody.